Hi, it's Leela, the proud poly kinky queer slut. Today's question is, why should men be opposed to the patriarchy? And yeah, patriarchy hurts all of us. I think that one thing that is overlooked sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes in the conversations about the patriarchy, about gender equality, about radical feminism, about equality, is the harm that the patriarchal systems that we've worked in has done to men and boys. This is something that is very much I'm conscious of because I have a son. I have a son who is now becoming a teenager. I also, see it impacting my friends who are men and boys, and what they're going through. People who've been enculturated male, raised as men and boys, and frankly, I've got a few friends who come from that, who were raised as male at birth and identify as male, who can talk in a lot more detail with more personal experience about these challenges. But from my perspective, what I see is that the patriarchy creates a situation where men are expected to be a specific way, to be performatively in specific things. And that becomes challenging for men, not just gay men, not just people who are non-conforming, but for men across the board who just have a more complex personal life experience and don't necessarily fit in the mold that is taught them. Frankly, I don't know who does fit that mold. That is taught by the old school notions of a man being a man and certain things being manly and the lack of attention to emotions. What I have seen also is that over the past 40 years of my life, my existence, I have seen that there has been real progress, not all the way there, but real progress in allowing women more freedom to express the masculine aspects of ourselves and also the gender neutral aspects of ourselves, the things that have nothing to do with gender, and more of an understanding of things like, for example, wearing pants has nothing to do with my gender. Um, but there has not been the equivalent um, work in the sphere of what is expected of our boys and what is taught to them. And no matter what messages I have at home, I see my son being enculturated in a culture that tells him he cannot wear a dress, that tells him that there are certain methods of emotional expression that are not cool, not approachable in his social groups. Um, I also see that there's still very much this understanding for men around me that they are to be providers, that there are certain expectations of what they need to fit a mold they need to fit. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen to women too. It absolutely does. I'm just pointing out that the patriarchy hurts men and women. It hurts all of us by having a hierarchical structure for how we live our lives that has one person or set of people having direct control over other people and over another specific person. Um, and that's harmful whether you are expected to be the one who has control or the one who's being controlled. There's also the flip side of the patriarchy, which is that women being expected to be in certain roles and have certain attributes are those attributes are denied to men, and and then women are expected to be able to have certain control over men in certain ways. All of this thinking ignores the fact that on a fundamental level, we are more humans than we are men or women. We are more just people who have a lot more in common than our gender would identify. So I do not have any particular opinions in terms of whether your gender is responsible for this or that aspect of personality. But what I do know is that people are a lot more complicated than gender constructs are. And the patriarchy hurts men and has made it hard for men to express their entire being and to be their entire self. And I know that because men I know and care about have told me this repeatedly, that the expectations of what they are to be, the expectation of how they are to be performing their roles in family, in society, is hurting them. And this is something I hear over and over and over and over again. And so when my friends tell me those things, I believe it. And when I see it with my own eyes, I believe it. And when I'm standing there metaphorically in front of my son, confronting people who are putting messages in his face that are not messages I agree with, and are messages like yeah, you're gonna protect your sister, aren't you? Messages like oh, you don't need stuffed animals anymore because you're a big boy now. Things like that. And when I'm having to physically get in the way and say no, that is not a message that I feel is appropriate to convey to my child's still hearing that message. They're hearing me stand up against it, but they're still hearing that message. They're still getting that from the greater society we're in, and I feel like that is a harm. I don't think that we can undo the sexism in our culture without addressing the true harm done to the men in our society by this attitude. And we do not change that by attacking those men, in my opinion. I do think that it is on all of us to stand up and call out behaviors that we feel are completely inappropriate. But I feel that approaching with compassion and education and teaching and listening, really listening to the perspectives of people, is how we undo this. And providing space for men to express what they need to express, and not dictating for them what that is. Listening, because I really think that so much healing happens just by listening and trying to understand. So yeah, so that's why I think the patriarchy hurts men and how I think it hurts them, and by extension, all of us in society. So a little bit rambly, but I hope that you've gotten something out of this, and thank you very much for listening. My name is Leela, and I'm the proud poly kinky queer slut. Remember, you can ask me anything.